Hello and welcome. Today we're coming to you from the Curvelo circuit in Brazil using their shorter layout. We're going to be using the BMW 2002 from the vintage touring car Tier 1 class. We've got a 30-minute race on the 15th of June 2024. Seems to be a good date for weather. Starting at 6 o'clock in the morning, so we've got lights on in the first part of the morning. Real time, real weather, a rolling start, no pit stops, and a default progressing circuit. Our opponents will be a maxed out grid of vintage touring car Tier 1 cars, which is the Corvette C3 and the BMW 2002 turbos. I've done the AI calibration. My magic number is 108, but we're going to be starting from the middle of the pack, so I'm going to knock it back one extra point to 107%. We've got an AI wet skill scaler of 0.8, but I very much doubt we're going to need it. Medium aggression and standard mistakes after what we learned from the last race at Road America. So, without further ado, let's get trackside and let's go and see how this car behaves. That's a bit greedy, that. Yeah, let's just stick to these two. A little bit of contact there. We give them room. Ooh, smooth start. Not everybody got through that first section, did they? That's a shame. Come on. Right, now it's ours finally. Oh, that was close. Now I've got a whole load of things I want to say, but I think this might have to be a silent movie because I need to concentrate on this one. If I get a chance later in the race I will do, but for now it takes everything I've got. Bye bye. Can we make it stick? Yes. A little beauty. Oops, if all else fails, put a bit more boot in. That's the front wheel drive in me coming out. An ill-judged move. Right, natural order has been restored. Nice. Bit too quick on the middle right. Sacrificed the left too much. But I think third gear is the right choice through there when you're on your own. Can we nip up the inside here? Can we? Sweet. They give it up very easily. With enough time for me to be able to take the apex. Oh look, there's one BMW stuck amongst all the Corvettes. Let's go hold up the 2002 Honor with them, shall we? If we can. Excuse me. Opportunity. Nice. Nice, and it's ours already. Fantastic. Sweet. Oh. Oh, I just snagged that curb on the inside of the right. Nearly sent me into the wall. Easy. Opportunity here, but he'll get it back on the straight. But we might be able to then be in the ability zone of overtaking in the braking. Maybe not looking at that. Oh, they're a bit too fast, aren't they, on the straights? We'll see. No, not quite close enough. Come on, come on. Oh, that was close. I'm not sure if it's blocking me or if it's attacking the blue car. Not quite sure. If he's blocking me, that's absolutely awesome. I've never seen that before, so actively blocking. And so so decisively blocking as well. This is awesome. Oh, come on, mate. Right, we need to split these guys up, don't we? Come on, front. Ah! That's 2 laps in a row, I've buggered that up. He's still there. The yellow and green Corvette's very aggressive with its way it's trying to overtake. Let's see if I can walk the green one a little bit. Right, we should be able to get into the first corner ahead of them now. Nice. Now I think the green and yellow car's got more pace than I have in it. That's better. That's better. Come on. Ah. Oh. I was purposely careful on the throttle then as well. Still messed it up. I think it's because on the apex it's sort of like it's quite heavily cambered, and the inside rear wheel sort of gets light as you come out of the camber. So if you're on the throttle, it just spins up, and once it starts to spin, it just runs away with itself. You've got to get your timing just right. Off there. Right, we've got some work to do now, haven't we? That cost us big time, that did. Bit too gentle then. But it's nice that the blue car's still with the yellow and green. I was expecting the yellow and green car to start to run away, which is, but it's, that it hasn't is great. If I can latch back onto the back of them, we might be just might be back in this race again. Wait for the front, go. Oops, a bit too wide on the left. Ooh. Watch out for the Corvette behind us. They've not given up yet. Not going to defend it. There's been lots of little contact in this race. Oh, this is a good run. Can I use it? Oh, I had to. No. Another bit of contact. It's just so difficult to It's difficult because it still takes so much capacity to drive the car at this pace. But then you've got to add on to that. Oh, mistake. You got to add on to that the trying to get the racecraft in place as well. Come on. That's a bit rude, but his mistake hurt us there. Well, that's sketchy, isn't it? Right, stop talking now. Back to Charlie Chaplin mode. Now this might have just released this Corvette. Remains to be seen. Come on. Ooh. Oh, just hit me. Knocked the wheel right out of my hands. Or did I hit him? I don't know. Either way, that was near the end of the race. Well, for the win anyway. Ah, come on. Right, can we cross the line ahead of him? I'm not going to block him. No. The blue Corvette's back on us now. Easy. Yeah. Looking too good, is it? Easy, easy. Oh. Alright, racing for second. Oh, bottled it. Oh, what a brilliant race. What a brilliant race. I was riding my luck for most of that. That was fantastic. Ah, gutted I bottled it on that last lap. That was brilliant. Well done, bud. Fantastic. Let's have a little look at the times. Right, let's skip the cool down lap. So, it's just a load of Corvettes and us in the middle of it. Just over a second down at the end. So we got a 42.9. Yes, I got me 42. That's good. 43.5, 43.5, 43.3. Yeah, so yeah, the AI level being like a point down or so was, I think, right. I couldn't have done. Yeah, I couldn't have done the next level up. I don't think. Well, not and finished second anyway. Yeah, that was great. Right, I've got so much to say. Let's get into the replay, shall we? Well, what a brilliant, fantastic race that was. There is something about these old classic cars on these vintage tyres that just produces the best racing. And I have to say, if I had to choose, I would probably choose this racing over the more modern style cars. There's just something about it that just makes it feel a bit more magical, a bit more special to me. I'm absolutely gutted that my mistake on the last lap took away the opportunity for a bit of a grandstand finish. Um, and I'm sorry to you guys for that because the race was building and building and building, and then all the pressure got released a little bit too soon. But it's just racing, isn't it? It's just one of those things, and it happens, and unfortunately, it happened to me on this occasion. But even so, I think the rest of the race was a really good showcase for just how good the BMW is to drive and enjoy racing. I've got a nice little list of things because there's a lot I want to talk about, and I wasn't able to talk about it in the race because I was having to concentrate so much. I didn't have much capacity left to do the talking because you don't have to make much of a mistake with this car, and you're not getting it back. So I didn't want to get into that trap. So I was at the limit for the majority of the race, and I was pushing my luck for the majority of the race. So that last lap mistake, really and honestly, I'm surprised it didn't happen earlier in the race because there were plenty of opportunities where it could have done. I I overstepped the mark when I was trying to overtake the M branded car going into the left hander into that left right flick and just left the braking just a little bit too late. And once you snag a tyre, oh, you just don't get it back. It just goes. And the same with the back of the car as well. When it starts to slide, it just it just goes, and you're very very lucky to catch it if it does do that. But Yeah, I was on the limit most of the race, which is why there wasn't a whole lot of talking from me, which is why I've now got this massive summary list of things to talk about. So I did the AI calibration before the race, and my magic number was 108. I chose to knock it back to 107 because I wanted to start from the middle of the pack and try and work my way through because I thought it would give a nicer race and give a better impression of just how good these cars are to actually race. And I think it was the right choice in the end. You'll also notice as well during the race that there was the little sort of telemetry window in the top right, the top left corner of the screen throughout the race. So that is a screen grab from the second monitor app, which I've been using for a good while now. But I wanted to show you the tyre temperatures and pressures and the throttle and brake inputs, the steering inputs. It also shows you the damage of the car. So it basically shows you everything that the game shows you with its inbuilt sort of HUD, but it does it in a more complete, more compact way, and it gives you the inside, middle, outside temperatures of the tyres and all sorts. So I wanted to put that on there because there's a very important point coming up in this summary to explain why I wanted to show you that. But before we get there, I've got really great memories of this car. So my dad used to race prepare some cars for a friend of his, and one of the cars that his friend had was a BMW 2002, and yeah, just really sort of he didn't have it for very long, but it was a beautiful car. So, and I can see myself racing this many times. So I'll be doing a livery which is as best as I can remember it, how that car was, as best as I can remember. But it's a bit fuzzy, but I'm going to do my best to try and recreate what he had. So let's get into the detail of what we were actually driving. So yes, it's a BMW 2002, but believe it or not, that was pretty much the default setup that Razor provide us. There was some changes to it, but they were quite minor, but also quite major at the same time. And I'll explain that in just a second. So it was the default setup exactly, with the tyre pressures set as low as they can go, down to 1.4 bar. They were about 5 psi lower than what the default setup is. I did a back-to-back test, and the lower pressures were faster, they were more stable, and they basically had less tyre wear. They were just massively faster. So, and that was compared to a tyre that had been pressured in the way that you would expect, where the inside, middle, outside temperatures were equalised or, you know, sort of normalised across the width. They just those pressures just did not produce the results. So it seems like with the vintage tyres, at least, I haven't verified this with the more modern tyres, but with the vintage tyres, it seems like the tyre squish, the amount that it gets compressed and the surface area that the extra squish gives you, outweighs the optimal tyre pressure. So it's something which I can even show you. I've got a video ready to go. I'm not sure if I'm going to release it or not, but I might put a screenshot of it on the screen for you so you can see the end result. So I did two 10-lap runs, one with the ideal pressure and one with the pressure as low as it can go. And I'll maybe put a snapshot of the end of the run, after 10 laps, so you can see the difference yourself between the two runs. Very interesting, very cool. And also, I think it's actually fairly true to life as well. So yeah, I think a lot of real race teams would prioritise, you know, contact patch over the ideal rule of thumb, you know. So we'll see. I'm gonna keep working on it and sort of develop the idea. I'm gonna bring it into the later sort of generation tyres as well, because obviously these are very different tyres to what we have these days. So we'll see if that carries over as well. So yeah, so there was that was the main difference, and by far and away the biggest difference. The other difference was I took a little bit of so it had a little bit of toe out as default, and I did a test and I just basically made them so that they were straight ahead. So I wanted to see if toe in on the front of a rear wheel drive car actually helps to improve the feeling of the front end. So the theory was that when you start with toe out and you turn the wheel, the outside wheels still, slightly, it's more straight compared to a wheel that's being towed in. And the inside wheel's not really doing the work, it's the outside that's doing the work, so that's the one that's determining the angle the car is going. So the theory was that a bit more toe in would actually make it a bit more aggressive. But what I found was that it helped make the car a bit more stable on the brakes as well, because it's almost like the inside wheel was more straight and it was able to, I don't know, it was almost like it was able to cope with, it didn't snag as much. So something else to investigate further with that. But apart from that, they were the only two changes I made. The rest of the setup and the fuel load was completely as per default, and it was brilliant. And I went around the houses. I've spent all week driving this car, and I went around the houses with the setup, and I went through the process of trying to make it more stable on the throttle and all that sort of stuff. And I ended up coming back to the default, and it was better. So this car plays to its strengths, and Razor understands that clearly. And they let the car be what the car is, rather than trying to force it into what you think it should be. And that approach is definitely the right one, because the car is lovely to drive on the default setup. So massive thumbs up to Razor for that. That was absolutely brilliant. Really, really nice to be able to say, as straight out of the box, the car is balanced beautifully. So yeah, thank you very much, Razor, for that. You do need to drive it mindfully though. So if you can't just chuck it around. So in the process of me driving it throughout the week, the reason I wanted to come back to the default setup at the end of the week was just to verify that my driving style hadn't adapted to the car. And as it turns out, that's exactly what had happened. So as my driving style had adapted to the car, when I then revisited it with the default setup, it was actually the better option. So you have to drive it mindfully. You have to plan ahead. You can't react to things, because when things start to happen, they're going to happen at that point. It's too late. You're not going to stop it. So for example, if you're going into this first corner, or the really fast left-right flick about halfway around the lap, if you drag the brake in towards the apex and you're still on the brakes too heavily, the weight goes to the front of the car and the rear gets light, and then when the rear gets light, it starts to slide. At that point, you're in trouble. You can't afford for that rear end to start moving whilst you're on the brakes and the weight's still on the front of the car. You have to be careful with it. You got to make sure that you keep everything as stable as you can. It's real tricky, because you've really got to push it as far as you can before you get to that point. So into this left-hander just coming up now, you got to make sure that you got your braking done and the car is settled before you really tip it into the corner. And also when you're coming out of it as well, you're on the bump and you get a compression, and you're on the curb as well. If that unsettles the rear of the car and it starts to slide, you're going to really struggle to get it back. So you've got to be very, very careful with it. Likewise, when I was coming out of the last corner, when I was on the throttle, so the corner's quite heavily cambered, and the inside wheel is sort of quite light, and you're trying to get on the throttle as quick as you can. You want to get on the throttle because it gets you all the way down the straight. You'll see it just here now. So you're trying to get it here. It's very, very light. You're trying to get on the throttle. You're playing with it, and if you're not careful, if you start to spin up the rear wheel on the inside, it will almost run away with itself. It doesn't sort of recover. You can take your foot off the throttle, but it doesn't really stop it. The wheels are still going almost. It's So you've got to be really, really careful. You've got to drive it very mindfully, which makes it very difficult to race because you've got to do everything very deliberately. You can't just send it up the inside and then just deal with whatever happens, whilst you're on the apex like you can on a modern car. With this, you've got to plan ahead and you've got to think about what you're doing, and you've got to make sure that what you do is not going to do the things that the car doesn't like. So it's a different mindset, and it took me a fair while to sort of get into it. So if you try the car and you don't instantly get on with it, chances are you just need to have like an adaptation period to do that, and then once you get into it and once you click with it, you're not going to want to put it down. It's absolutely fantastic. I did find that with the power delivery, the gear selection can help. So in the first little complex through the walled section, the concrete walled section, second gear when I was in traffic was needed, but when I was on my own and was able to run an open lap, I found third gear to be a bit settled. Sorry, just a bit more settled. But I had to be a bit more mindful of the middle right, just to make sure that the higher gear didn't roll the car too far wide, ready for the last left onto the little straight section. So, but again, drive it mindfully and you'll be fine. But the gear selection can certainly help. Yeah, I would. There's just one wish I would have, but I am extremely grateful for what we've already got. But this class, and so would the Tier 2 class as well, be absolutely brilliant. It would just be the most complete thing ever if they could get a few extra different types of car in there. And maybe one day they will, but who knows. But like I say, I'm extremely grateful for what we've already got, because it's absolutely brilliant. Yeah. So, lastly, the circuit choice was brilliant. It was a suggestion from Mark Collins to me, and as was the car as well. So, just really, really great racing. I've never had a bad race at this circuit, but I normally use the long version of it. I very rarely use the short version, but it really suits the car really, really nicely. So, very, very glad of that. And I thought it just gave really good sort of to and fro racing, and I thought it balanced out nicely with the Corvettes versus BMWs as well. The two were very, very nicely balanced, very, very good, very, very cool, very, very technical circuit. Lots of curb use, a little bit of dirt use as well, and like here, just it looks like a bit of a nothing corner almost, but there's a lot going on there that you've got to think about. So really, very, very, very cool. Right, so not sure what's coming up next, but it'll be another car. It'll be a different car, I'm sure. Yeah, thank you very much for watching. Thank you for listening to me waffle on this last little bit. I will show you the final setup that I used, even though it's very, very close to default, but I'll still show you the final setup just after this. But yeah, thank you for watching, thank you for supporting, and until the next time, we'll see you later.